At the root of everything, not at everything, but a key part of this whole discussion, John, is money in politics. People cannot vote their conscience. They can't vote their intelligence when they know if they vote against the corporate world or the big money world, they're going to get defeated at the polls.
All right, everyone, today we're diving into something big. Bernie Sanders just went on Jon Stewart's podcast and dropped some serious truth bombs about corruption in Washington. From AIPAC's influence to the food and beverage industry's chokehold on public health, this is the kind of stuff that has people questioning if the system can even be saved. And of course, TYT had their takes too, some good points, some classic TYT fluff, but we will sift through it all. Stick around because we're breaking it down, calling out the nonsense, and keeping it real. As always, let's get into it.
Senator Bernie Sanders just exposed his fellow senators for bending the knee to AIPAC. Take a look.
There are many members of the Senate who will come to you privately and say, my God, what Netanyahu is doing is outrageous. I just can't vote because money is going to come and destroy my political career.
That was on the most recent episode of Jon Stewart's podcast, The Weekly Show. Let's watch a little bit more of their discussion.
How does Washington get out of that bubble to understand the trap that most people are in? Childcare is too expensive. Then when the kid's finally old enough, education is too expensive. When you finally pay that off, your parents are older and you got to take care of them. How do we get them to understand that?
Yeah, you're missing the point here, John. It's not a question of getting them. People think the members of Congress and the Senate are stupid. They're not. It's not a question of knowing or understanding. It's a question of who controls what goes on here. At the root of everything, not at everything, but a key part of this whole discussion, John, is money in politics. People cannot vote their conscience. They can't vote their intelligence when they know if they vote against the corporate world or the big money world, they're going to get defeated at the polls.
Right off the bat, Bernie nails it. Money in politics is the cancer eating away at our democracy. Let's be honest, this isn't some groundbreaking revelation. We've all known this for years, but what's frustrating is how normalized it's become. These politicians might as well have corporate logos on their suits like NASCAR drivers. It's not just money in politics, it's politics is money. You think a senator's voting their conscience? No, definitely not. They're voting their bank account. And the worst part, both parties play the same game. They'll just sell it differently. Republicans call it free market principles, and Democrats slap a progressive sticker on it. But at the end of the day, they're both cashing checks from the same corporations. Are we really ever going to wake up and demand better, or is this just how it is? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments.
As of July of this year, AIPAC had already spent over $100 million on federal elections. And here's another timely example of how corporate money affects our politics. In a Senate hearing yesterday, FDA Commissioner Dr. Robert Califf admitted that the food and beverage industry often blocks the FDA's efforts, but declined to say that was a problem. Thankfully, Bernie called him out on that. We'll get to that clip shortly, but first, let's see how their confrontation started. Take a look.
2010, the National Academy of Medicine recommended that the food and beverage industry be required to put nutritional labels that the American people could easily understand on the front of their packages. According to the CDC, the rate of childhood obesity in America has tripled since the 1970s. And from where I'm standing here, the FDA has not responded in any way with the urgency of the crisis. How long does it take to put a bloody label on a product?
Bernie's frustration here is 100% justified. We've known for decades that processed foods are killing us, yet the FDA can't even get a label slapped on a cereal box. Why? Because the food and beverage industry has Congress in a headlock. It's honestly embarrassing. And let's be real, this isn't just about labels, it's about accountability. These companies rake in billions while pumping out products loaded with sugar, chemicals, and addictive additives. They know exactly what they're doing, and meanwhile, childhood obesity is skyrocketing, and the FDA shrugs its shoulders like, well, what can we do? Here's an idea, your job. But they won't because they're too busy taking orders from their corporate overlords.
Sounds simple. Given the current state of judicial affairs, First Amendment rights, the fact that corporations have the same rights as individuals, every little thing we do, unless specifically in detail instructed by Congress,
Okay.
it's not just that we lose in court, but we lose years when
All
that
right, but
happens.
let me, yeah, again, I apologize for interrupting, but don't have endless amounts of time. I understand all that. Have you had the courage to take on a very powerful food and beverage industry?
That's a good question. But let's watch Caliph run cover for the giant corporations that are creating the problem he is supposed to fix. Take a look.
And I'm really heartened to hear the bipartisan support for this because much of what we try to do, frankly, gets blocked along
By
the
whom?
way. And we'll
By
talk
whom?
about
Let's
that.
let's be honest here. The food and beverage industry spends hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on lobbying and on campaign contributions.
And there it is, the real reason nothing changes. These companies don't just lobby, they dominate. They pour millions into elections not because they care about democracy, but because they want a guaranteed return on investment. It's a legalized form of bribery. And the result? Politicians who are more loyal to Coca-Cola and PepsiCo than the people who elected them. Think about it. Every time you see a law that could actually help consumers, such as banning certain harmful additives or taxing junk food, it gets blocked. Why? Should be pretty obvious, because these companies own the system. And the irony, they're making us sick while Congress looks the other way. And where's the outrage? Nowhere to be seen.
You tell me the role that they are playing in destroying the health of America's children.
Well, I'm not going to contest your comment about the amount of money spent on lobbying. I think it's probably accurate. I don't have figures on that. But a lot of the changes that those of us who are interested in better health would like to make are blocked at the level of legislation for reasons that
But I'm
you'd
not,
have to
still
tell
not
me.
hearing you. What is the reason that our kids are unhealthy? What role do this industry play? Even now, you're getting out of office. Are you prepared to tell us that this committee, this Congress needs to take on the food and beverage industry whose greed is destroying the health of millions of people?
Well, I'm not going to castigate the people that work in the food and beverage industry.
You're not.
No, what I
That
will
is
say-
your job.
No, it's not to castigate. It's to point out how to make progress in this area.
Pretty good. Bernie was just reelected for another 6-year term. He is 83. I think we all hope he can hang in there for the remainder of his term, but it does seem like he's using his last years in the Senate to just really go after everybody.
Listen, you've got to hand it to Bernie. The man's 83 years old and still swinging. Meanwhile, we've got younger politicians who can't muster half his energy to call out corruption. I mean, what's their excuse? All right, they're too busy padding their post-Congression retirement plans with consulting gigs. You think these folks are retiring to sip Mai Tais on the beach? No, they're retiring to million-dollar boardrooms where they'll advise the same corporations they were supposed to regulate. It's honestly a joke, and Bernie's one of the few I think is still honestly fighting, even if the odds are stacked against him, which I have to give some respect.
Waz, what do you think of these Bernie clips?
I just love the synergy of today's show, where we talk about the swamp because that dude's headed for a consultant job in the food and beverage industry. 1,000,000%. The reason why he won't go on record talking crazy about those people and exposing what they're doing in terms of poisoning our population with the crap that they put in their products is because I would put any amount of money on it. This guy is headed for a first class ticket to consultant bank, okay, after he gets out of that post. And that's what was just exposed there, man. This is the swamp, literally at work right here.
I couldn't agree with Waz more. It was just painful, okay? And I think he felt like, you heard Senator Sanders say we don't have endless time. This guy was talking so low and so slow. It was like, who needs melatonin? Okay, this is exactly what's going on here. I agree. I would take that bet. He's been captured. That's what lobbying does. He would barely even acknowledge what Senator Sanders said. Is not even really that controversial. It's just, this is how we do business, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. He was just pointing it out again. And here we have this little numbnuts answer, like, again, we're stupid. But as the senator told, Jon Stewart, he and his colleagues are not stupid. They know exactly what's going on. That gentleman testifying knows exactly what's going on, but we're just going to continue the status quo. And occasionally you're going to hear Senator Sanders be one of the only ones to call it out on behalf of the people.
This is honestly the most insulting part. They act like the public can't see what's happening when it's so obvious it's laughable. The politicians know, the corporate lobbyists know, and guess what? We know too. The only difference is they're banking on the fact that we can't do anything about it. But maybe, just maybe, they're wrong because people are fed up, and I'm personally starting to see the change. From my side, it's just a question of how long is left until we actually demand change.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, Bernie's just stating the obvious and he's heralded for it. And I think it's what
Mhm.
many, if not most people in this country want to see. You can talk to even Republicans, and if you ask them what's wrong in Washington, it's that they think the politicians are corrupt. They think they're all bought and controlled by special interests and corporations. And, Trump will pay lip service to that sentiment. He certainly won't do anything about it, but I think that spoke to people like Bernie's popularity. It's why Warren is a popular figure. It's why AOC is popular. And you're seeing more and more people rise by addressing it. On the right, people will like lean into it, but won't do anything about it. Josh Hawley does it every now and then. He'll pretend to be an anti-corporate, like antitrust guy, doesn't do anything on it. But we're going to see more and more people finally actually take action, I hope, because this problem is just unignorable. Like, you have someone in this position who is supposed to be doing something about it. It's like, well, the food industry blocks it. So ignore them? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you say? Like, this is your job, man. And there's also a danger in not doing anything about it, when you have people like RFK Jr. coming in who have been saying that this is a problem for a very long time. You're kind of ceding ground to the right. And if RFK does like anything on it, even something small, the right will point to it routinely, be like, well, actually, we're the party who's taking on special interests. We're the party taking on corporations. Never mind the 98% of our work that benefits them. They can point to this as a success. And the Democrats, at least on this front, don't have something as significant to point to. So I commend Bernie for continuing to fight the good fight, even though he knows positions that he takes, work that he engages in, is often a losing battle. So hopefully he sees more success in what I assume will be his final term in the Senate. But it's just frustrating that he is outnumbered and often alone on this. Was Sharon, any final thoughts?
I think you talk about the dangers. I think one of the dangers that we saw in the Kamala campaign, why I think the whole like democracies on the line and all of that stuff didn't land. I don't think it's that people didn't believe her. I think people are like, all right, what's so good about the democracy we have right now? It's not as if a democracy is supposed to be the will of the people expressed through government. And when is that ever happening for people where something that's overwhelmingly popular that everybody wants, like, say, I don't know, universal health care, better health care outcomes. When is that ever happening through the instrument of government? It doesn't.
Exactly. You could poll the entire country on something like universal healthcare or raising the minimum wage, and it would get overwhelming support. But does it happen? Never. Because the corporations don't want it, and what they want, they get. This isn't a government, it's a corporate cartel. And what's wild is that both parties use this dysfunction to their advantage. Democrats blame Republicans, Republicans blame Democrats, and meanwhile, the people just keep losing. It's like a bad sitcom where the joke is always on us.
So when you tell people that democracy is going to be destroyed, they yawn and don't care. And this is why. It's stuff like this, man.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Boy, we're just agreeing on everything. And I think Woz made the point earlier in the show that, listen, frustrated people decide, let's just go down with the ship. It can't get any worse. Let's drag this thing all the way down. And then it is frustrating, but hopefully it gets better because we can't get much worse. And
Yep.
working class people, the working poor, whatever ridiculous label that you want to put on folks, it comes down to this. They're not going to shut up forever. They're going to fight back. And it could be ugly. It could be, God forbid, violent, but they're going to fight back.
So there you have it. Bernie Sanders exposing the corporate machine that runs Washington. From AIPAC to the food industry, the evidence is clear. Money talks and the people suffer. So what is the solution? Maybe it's time we demand more from our leaders, or better yet, elect new ones who aren't for sale. What do you guys think? Are we stuck in this mess, or can things actually change? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we will see you guys in the next one.